John?
John Proctor, I'd like to make a correction to what Bruce said. If you go back to the field data, those three curves, any one of those that show the three curves, that data is not at the house.
It's not.
The flow measured is going to the house, but the temperature drop through the unit is measured at the unit. So it's the same. It's the same thing that when you look at the ACA graph, which I think is a couple of slides further, it is looking at the same thing. It's what's happening actually at the unit.
So these two are really comparable.
Those are comparable.
Yeah. Okay.
George, you should know better by now. You can't yell from the. Go ahead, please.
John Crouch with HPBA. We're the vented gas heating fireplace people. 95% of all the gas fireplaces in the state come through our members. And I know this is about zonal cooling, but we're very concerned that zonal heating will get thrown out with this bathwater, if you will. And I appreciate now seeing the presentation that the focus is on the application of a lot of this in cooling. But zonal heating is very intuitive in homes and is used a little bit in this state in new construction, and we anticipate it'll be used a great deal more in new construction in the coming cycles. And we really want to encourage the staff to keep attitudes towards zonal heating and zonal cooling separate and preserve the zonal heating opportunity. And
what do you mean by opportunity? I mean, we're not disallowing.
Yeah, I know you're not, and I appreciate that. Seeing the presentation is very helpful now, but we are also concerned about the software in the new engine. If the software doesn't allow, we hope the software will allow zonal heating and credits for it.
So there's a difference between allowing zonal heating or taking credit. What are you talking about?
We're interested in taking credit for it and having it recognized in the software. And we'll provide more comments.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mike Hodgson, Consul representing CBA. Bruce, I had a question on your 12% of ducted systems are dampered. I couldn't follow the math. And so are you saying that 12% of the market uses a two-zone approach or a multi-zone approach?
No, I think what we're saying is the multi-zone is a larger fraction of the market than that, and the systems we surveyed, 12% of them were dampered multi-zone systems. Well, actually, no. 12% of the ones that had ducts. In other words, leaving out the wall furnaces.
Okay, so
leaving out,
so John, so 12% of the market is a damper. 12% of the new construction market in your survey were dampered multi-zone systems. 12% of the new construction market were dampered multi-zone systems. I'm just trying to understand your math.
No, 12%, John, 12% of the ducted systems in the sample were ducted multi-zone systems. They had ducted dampered systems.
Okay.
So there are not 80 ducted systems in the sample. Radiant floor systems aren't ducted,
right,
et cetera, et cetera.
So of the 70 or whatever that had ducts, 12% of those have dampers and are multi-zone.
That's correct.
Okay.
In addition, there were 17 multiple split systems.
Right.
So there were more of the houses we saw that had multiple systems than had damper systems.
And that's where I'm going. Is my understanding of the market would be that if you put two-zone to house and tried to credit for it, the majority of those would actually have two separate systems, living, sleeping type thing, or upstairs, downstairs. But your proposal is for those systems also not to get a two-zone credit. correct? Right. And the rationale is on the air conditioning side, you don't see setbacks working in the sleeping zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as we can, yes, that's basically it.
Okay. So the concern going forward, not necessarily this code cycle, but in future code cycles when we get loads smaller and smaller, are we still going to have the ability to model those small loads as living and sleeping areas in whatever version of software we have?
You mean with different set points?
Yes.
Well, it depends on what we decide here.
Okay.
If we go ahead with the proposal to eliminate that zonal credit, then I would say not.
Okay. So I think the issue for us would be then is we think, I'm not disagreeing with the air conditioning side of it, but on the heating side, I think there is some logic to having separate set points, and we don't want that to go away because we think in long term, as we get smaller and smaller loads, we're going to have smaller and smaller appliances to service those loads, and we think they'll be in multiple zones. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike Easy from SMUD, a couple questions and then a personal observation. I'm concerned about the airflow and the setback thermostat requirements in the zonal conditions, because if you look at the mini splits, they have very low airflow. I don't think they achieve the 350 CFM per ton. At least that's not what I've seen. And the ones I've seen don't come with setback thermostats. Now, of course, that may have changed recently because I have an older unit. But I haven't seen anything coming out of them, so you might want to let the mini folks know that, and I've told them they should come up with a setback thermostat. That'd be easy for them to do. I would echo the comments from the fireplace insert guy, because I have one and they're great. And it's sort of an observation about zonal in particular. This, I think, has great applications for additions, which again are covered by the standards. This is a good way to condition an addition. And I don't know how this is going to impact what happens with additions, because if someone were to come to me and ask my advice at SMUD how to deal with that, I would go do zonal systems. Those little Renai, no judgment there, but those little Relay wall heaters are great, I think. Yeah, absolutely. And I think people will use them when they're needed. I mean, it's pretty intuitive. You don't condition your space unless you're in it. I don't know if too many people would just go in there and turn it on and walk away. Maybe that's why you have the setback thermostat requirement. Although we all know how they get used too. They don't get used at all. I mean, the little sampling we've done at SMUD is people just set them at one temperature and leave it.
Well, I mean, that's part of the reason that the research that says that if you don't do setback, the zonal system will not save energy. In fact, it might use more energy is important, because I think there's quite a bit of at least anecdotal evidence that our ubiquitous setback thermostats are really not used the way we think they are in the current standards.
So, Mike, you left before I had a chance. So what you're saying is we're not saying you can't have zonal. We're just saying you can't have the credit.
I think people should get a credit if they can.
For both heating and cooling, or just heating?
Both heating and cooling.
And if the data suggests that the cooling doesn't save...
So you're looking at a pretty limited set of data here, I would say. I mean, 2007, things have happened since 2007. I mean, mini splits weren't even on them in the equation in 2007 whatsoever. And Mike's comments about reducing load, minis might work really well if we reduce load. And then the zonal heating, I'll just tell you from experience, yeah, I mean, that's why I did it in my house.
So I don't think anyone here disagreeing that the bypass should...
That sounds to me like it's a technology fix. That these, I would urge you to talk to some of the manufacturers to see
you know, 2007 is a world away from what it was today. You know, they may have fixed their systems since then. You know, that's you know, it's sort of like introduction of VAVs in the commercial sector, you know, 20 years ago, whenever it was done, right? I mean, they had problems then too. Maybe this has been taken care of. I'm just saying, you know,
So what,
zonal credit, you know, we should encourage people to do zoning. Let's not take away the credit if we can get it right.
thank you, Mike. Okay.
Jamie Bacchus, Energy. I have a question for Bruce or John. Just in the diagrams and in the sample houses you looked at, did you find any zoned systems that actually had multiple return grills and actually zoned the return?
John is saying no.
We didn't find any that had zoned returns. We had a few that had multiple returns.
Is there any reason to, in the systems that had zones within returns within those rather than space returning all to one common location, was there additional energy saved, and is there a reason we should be looking at that here at the Commission?
Well, we didn't try and measure that. That's so the question has to do with, is there any reason to believe that having the return zoned would be a good idea? And I think that obviously there are reasons to think that might work better, for sure. And if you're proposing to maintain, you know, one zone unconditioned and the other zone conditioned, if you're continuously mixing air between the two zones by pulling air from one to the other with a return, you know, how well can you actually maintain the temperature difference? So, but we didn't try to measure that in the field. It just, you know, seems obvious. The current zonal rules do not require that there be any dampers on the returns, but it does require that you have a return in each zone. So I don't know, it's sort of halfway between. That's to get the credit. You know, there's no requirement that, you know, for if you want to put a zone system in that says you have to do that.